Outlaws.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Saloon podcast. My name is Michael. I'm joined again with Max and then Rick. You guys want to say what's up?
Hey, everybody.
Yo, everybody. Victory. I guess it's a Tuesday at this point.
Number two.
That's 2 in a row, baby. I'm feeling great. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, this is awesome.
Oh, it's exciting, man. It's pretty awesome to see stuff starting to come together.
Hey, so lose two, win two. We're back in the column that we want to be. Huge game that we played. I'll start with you, Rick. What was the difference maker this week playing the Utah Archers, who we know how well that they usually play, kind of having an odd year, but to pick up a huge win in Maryland, how are you feeling and what did you see from the team this week?
Oh, dude, it was so much fun. It's fun when you see every aspect of how lacrosse is supposed to be played being played. So you start with the goalie. We now have 2 games in a row of just some exciting, explosive, fast-paced goalie play that's actually driving transition and driving the turnover game. You have the defense. Defense really, I thought, was the first thing that we got back after that first loss of game one. I thought in game
Yep.
two we had
Yep.
that. But to see them, they've kept pressure on, they've kept the aggressiveness. We didn't have any blowout fights this one, but that aggression is still there. They're still pressing. We swing some heavy axes, as was being said on the last game. We then built into our transition and really a strong D mids and some strong transition game in the middle. But this is really the first week where I've seen the offense fully come together and produce more than I believe the last 3 games combined. When you look at production, when you look at touches, when you look at assists, the fact that they're playing east to west, not only north to south, like their plays are, I think really showed that, hey, we've come together early, and this is a team that from here now grows and just gets better. You take this, you take what they've done, and you've seen what I believe is some good coaching probably, where they've now gelled everything together, and now just everything gets to grow as one instead of individual units getting better.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
Yeah, that you hit that on the nail here. Yeah, I think it's good to see the team coming together culturally, and just all around show resilience as well. I mean, we saw they went down early in that game. They also had a kind of a rough third quarter, but to come out and show that resilience is very promising moving forward. Like you said, Rick, I think the offense is starting to fire. They're starting to get some chemistry in there, and I think that could just only lead to more and more production. So I'm very excited to see what more this offense can do.
Oh,
It's awesome that all the Touraton winners, I mean, it looks like defenses are having to pick they're having to pick the lesser of, 4 evils.
yeah.
Right, right.
If they're locking off O'Neill because they think he's going to go off, well, we got Bernhardt now, we got Kavanaugh, and Wisnowsis. So, I mean, we saw it during the game. What's his name? Hannock? Or what's his name? Sorry. He had to
Graham
switch off
Hossick?
Yeah, Hossick, yeah.
Yep.
Hossick had to switch off of O'Neill and go to Bernhardt. And that opened up, O'Neill to start producing too. So that's what I'd love to see in an offense. That's just what an offense with so many weapons can do is they got to pick, all right, who's going to kill us more?
Yeah.
So it was just awesome to see. I'm very excited to see what
I
this
like
team
that you brought that up. They had a really good they when they switched the polls on Bernhardt and O'Neill, you saw they started doing that. Remember that I don't remember what quarter it was, but Bernhardt came in, he backed up, and the poll just left him alone, right? The poll just like,
Yep.
oh, well, you're
Yep.
not,
Was
and
off
then
of
he's
him.
like, well, I'll take that shot, and you have to have your number one D on the guy who's going to shoot, but we have 4 guys that are going to shoot at any given time. Right, so you saw that hesitation, which guys that are 4-ton winners are going to take advantage of.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think it's just good that just everything, like I said, is just it's coming together and they're having an identity, and that's just what I love to see. And I just think that's only just going to improve even more.
Mhm.
Just from defense all the way to offense, everything is just firing on all cylinders. They did have some rough patches in the game. It wasn't a perfect game all through, but I think just that resilience, and they're figuring out who they are. and that's all that matters. With this young core, they need to figure out who they are, and it looks like they're doing it. So
Yeah.
that's my big takeaway as a win. But I mean,
How much?
obviously,
Go ahead.
obviously a lot to improve on. I think. I mean, they did go down. What was it? 5 goals, 6 goals. Would not want that to happen. So obviously, there's some stuff to work on. But in the grand scheme of things, just glad we got away with a win. I mean, it's a quality appointment or opponent. We know the Utah Archers are struggling in some aspects right now, but they're still a really good team. I mean, they beat the Redwoods. They, last week was that last week. So
Yep.
I think they've been red hot in some
Yeah.
aspects. So
You don't take anything away from them. 5 games ago, they were champs, right?
Yep.
If you
Yep.
think of it like that, 5 games ago, they were the champs. So you don't take a lot away. You brought up, though, third quarter, but when you watched every game, there was that third quarter slump. How much do you think it was just heat? The fact that it was 110 degrees on the field. I mean, guys were literally dunking their feet into ice baths on the field. Do you think there's anything to play with that?
yeah,
100%. You're playing in that weather in Maryland of all places. It's muggy, it's hot. It wears these guys out, and they're from there. They played there before. I don't care where you're from. The heat's heat, man. You're
Yeah.
gonna be tired. You're gonna be worn out, and you're playing in a helmet. You're playing with pads. It wears you out. I don't care, professional athlete or not. It's still tough to play in those games. What do you think, Max?
yeah, no, and I think I can't remember. Well, Maryland played in the black jerseys too, but we were just black and orange. Utah
Yep.
had it easy with the white jerseys, so they were just the Outlaws were just soaking up the heat, and I bet that definitely affected them. I like that you brought that up. I mean, you probably go into the locker room where it's all air conditioned, and you come out and you're just like, oh my god, all right. Yeah, I can't believe that. Yeah, the announcers were saying that the sticks were melting. They had the sticks in ice baths. I mean, yeah, the cleats were melting. That was just crazy. But yeah, I think that definitely contributed to them. But they battled through. At the end of the third. Um, Obviously, there's 2 teams on the field. It looks like the Archers kind of showed that championship experience in that early third quarter, where they came out hot and they exploited them. So I think that just goes back to the kind of the theme as of halftime adjustments. It seemed like it was trending that way to where like they're not making adjustments at halftime, and it's bringing them down. It's coming back to haunt them, but at least they were able to adjust like in the middle of that third quarter to then go on their run. But I would like to see them not dig themselves such a hole, because if you're playing in the playoffs and that happens, that's going to be so much harder to come back from. But try not to be a negative Nelly. It was just an awesome game. It was a roller coaster, so I'm super glad they got the win.
Yeah, I think it's a tale of two stories. You look at the first half. Utah put up 7. We put up 5. Wasn't ideal. Max, you even texted me halfway through the game. You're like, dude, what is going on right now? And, I was like, dude, I don't know. We're going to come back. Like, we can. I just try to have as much hope as I could, but I agreed with you. I was just like, can we dig ourselves out of this against the Archers, back to back champs? Like Rick said, let's not forget 5 games ago, they won it back to back. And they did just put up a champ series as well as they did. They didn't win it all, but they put up a great champ series as well. So I was a little worried at halftime, but then you look at the second half, they literally put up 3 goals in the second half of the game compared to our 8. So it's a tale of two stories. They came out hot in the first half and then died the second half. We were dead in the first, won in the second. It's a tale of two stories. We've preached in and out of every podcast episode who's doing the locker room speech, who's giving that halftime speech to step it on that field in the third quarter and change momentum. And you saw that. I mean, we started doubling what we were scoring in the third and fourth quarters to win the game against the Archers. Whether it's heat fatigue or whatever it may be, which I think, like Rick said, I do think it played a piece. Whatever happened in that locker room at halftime, it worked, and we need this every single week.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, I also want to give. I know we've been kind of harping on the coaching, but we even heard it on the announcement, or we were watching it on the field. Sudo changed up the attack line, which I don't think he's really done a lot this season yet. I know it's only been 4 games, but like to see him physically go out there and change something, I think that's also progress too. It's just being like, all right, we need a drastic change, and it worked. So
Yep.
I like that we see, from the sideline, seeing Pseudo make a heads up play, just being like, you know what, Bernhardt's on fire. Let's put him at attack.
Yeah.
And, O'Neal's kind of getting shut down. Let's change it up. Let's get him some optimal matchups. I love that adjustment. That was just a good coaching play, in my opinion. I think it was all good. That's just what I kind of wanted to, kind of harp on too, where I think for the last couple of weeks we've been really keying in on those coaching adjustments. I think Pseudo and the coaching staff did a really good job this game, which is awesome.
You said that, so you guys were texting each other in the middle of the game. We weren't texting, but there was something in the middle of the game that I still felt confident, right? You still had
Yes.
that, you still had that excitement, like, no, no, we're good. Like you see it, you feel it, you saw some of the plays that are happening. Balls just weren't, finding a net, but balls were getting shot, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Those things are going to produce for you, and it just it made you still feel good halfway through that guys were still coming out performing the way they should, not getting afraid, oh, we're just not sinking anything. Just be like, nope, the more we do it, the more we are going to get. And we started hitting more net, later on in that game.
totally.
Well, and
Yeah,
Rick,
and I
as you
mean,
said last week too, sorry, Max, but as you said last week, the more ball movement you have, the more you get that goalie to move. So I don't know if they listened to our podcast last week. Also, shout out to everyone that does, because that was the most views we've ever gotten. So shout out to everyone that did it. We're patiently waiting for our blue check mark right now. We might have to hire an agent. I don't know, but Rick, going off of what you're saying there, though, I 100% agree with you, because at halftime, it's kind of like, oh, I don't know, like if we keep going this way and the Archers get hot, I don't know if it's winnable, but there's something in it that I was like, no, something about this also makes me feel like we can win that.
Mhm.
And going off what you just said, we had 50 shots to 38, and 30 of those shots were on goal, and 26 of theirs were on goal. So that's a story. Once again, that's another story to be told of just shoot the ball. Wayne Gretzky,
Yeah.
you're gonna miss every shot you don't take. Just shoot the ball. I mean, sometimes that's all you got to do. And especially with Dobson, Dobson's a great goalie, but he can't block 100 shots. He can, but he's not gonna block every single one. So just shoot the ball every time you have that chance. Just shoot, and I think that's what we saw. And also Graham Bundy getting his 2-pointer finally. I think it's only a matter of time before that guy gets hot too.
totally. Yeah, I was excited to see him at a 2 pointer. I think he hit a 2 pointer week two. I think it was in garbage time though. Yeah, I think that's right. But for him to have that momentum swinging goal was huge for him. I hope he just keeps getting hot. Um, so yeah, that's great to see as well. Yeah, and Dalton Young, all those guys on offense, I think just really stepped it up this game, and I expect them to continue to keep going. I don't want them to ever take their foot off the gas and be like, oh yeah, we got things handled, because every week is just going to get tougher and tougher and tougher. So intensity is going to heat up, and I just think, yeah, if they just keep their eyes on the prize and just keep playing like they're playing, like there's no tomorrow, then I think the sky's the limit for this team. So it's definitely some good stuff to look forward to for sure.
No, it absolutely is. And moving into the next piece, we can kind of use. I'll use the midfield as our dark horse for this, but we're gonna start a new bit here. We did last week, but Rick finally gave us a name for this. We're gonna call it our three honchos of the game. So there's gonna be three players that we agreed amongst the Rough Riders that were the three stars, but we're gonna call them the three honchos. Max, would you like to introduce our three honchos for the game here?
Yeah, so we'll go our three honchos. Our third one here is our boy Dalton Young with just killer performance there. Our second honcho is McNanny again, so that's the second week in a row he's been a honcho. We were talking about him last podcast as being a honcho as well, so he's our second honcho right there. And then you got to give the first honcho to the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Bernhardt right there, number 10.
JB10, baby.
There we go. So yeah, Rick, you wanna give us to why we
Yeah.
chose these
I,
three honchos?
I love that we put Young in the conversation finally this week. We had a midi. We talked about now all facets of the game are coming. We have middies now really starting to produce more in the offense. He had, I think it was three shots, scored twice, 2 points. He was producing, but he was exciting and moving fast. That you want to see your guys pushing others. And so he had 2 points. He was able to move. He was able to make some shots. Just very exciting to see our midi line have some of that output that we really expect from them. Second, McNaney, the number one goalie out of the last 2 weeks, over 60%. I think 64% average over the last 2 weeks. Um, just he is number one. Uh, you can't say enough about that. He's going to stop more shots than anybody else. He's going to stop them fast. And like I said, he's going to transition that ball as quick as he can and has full command of that transition game. So beautiful to see him do that. But whenever you are number one and it's your second game ever playing in professionals, you deserve to stay in that top three spot. Number one is Bernhardt. I mean, the guy he started as a midi and then earned the top spot as an attack, right? We saw him, and then the guy was just on fire the whole time. He was moving around. We mentioned that he was able to recognize you take 2 years off, and yeah, you're still playing an elite sport with football, but you take 2 years off, and he had no hesitation onto where ball movement needed to be at any given time. You saw him passing it, doing some skip passes. You saw him moving it up, but then you saw when guys were just dropping off of him, just take advantage of that and be aggressive, which he was doing. And to see that happen again, game two, the guy is literally a rookie and he's acting like he's been there for years. And really took control. He was the guy that all of a sudden the other team was afraid of. It wasn't O'Neal. It wasn't, some of these other guys. It was JB10, like you were saying. That's who everybody was afraid of. I guarantee you, next game, that's who they're going to be keying on as well. That's who
Totally.
I would key on.
Yeah, totally. And that's just what we keep saying. If you're keying in on Bernhardt, then you got so many other weapons that you're leaving to key in on him. So it's, are you going to guard him or are you going to guard O'Neal? Are you going to guard him or are you going to guard Kavanaugh? Wisnowski's all of them. But yeah, no, I think yeah, he was just on fire. I think he's just going to continue to heat up. Yeah, it's just like you said, like this is his third game professionally playing, and he is just absolutely lighting it up. So, and I think he has that. Obviously, he has that athleticism from the NFL, but he's definitely kind of has that IQ as well. That seems like he's just like hasn't skipped a beat, like you said. So that's just awesome to see. Yeah, McNanny, he was just he was fantastic, especially towards the end of the game when they needed him the most. He was there. I think in the first part of the game, there was I think Archers were just firing on all cylinders offensively. They were getting their good look shots. So I think some of those were going in, especially maybe towards the beginning of the third quarter. I think he was just getting shelled, and I don't think that was his fault. I think everyone was just kind of asleep for that first little part. You were just seeing it was like fast break after fast break. The defense was a little bit flustered, and he was just getting shelled. But for him to just turn it around, I think all throughout college, you said he has the most level head. He's super quick, fast memory to just move on. And you saw it. I mean, he was making timely saves, just one after another. When the team needed him most, he was there. And I don't think they would have, pulled off this miraculous comeback without him. So, just awesome to see that. So I'm just
I have
really
a
stoked to see him.
I have a good buddy that grew up with McNaney and played with him for years, played with him in college, well, against him in college. But he mentioned, he goes, we knew each other. We'd go out to these tournaments, we do all this. And he goes, I was able to play like him at my best, and he was able to play like him all the time. Right.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
what we're starting to see now and this, my buddy was an elite level goalie, right? The guy is amazing. I won't say his name because he doesn't want anybody to ever know he was a goalie. But he, you saw, I see him. I'm like, okay, you're probably the best that I've ever personally known. And he's like, it was nothing like McNanny was. It was nothing like how he just naturally is. We're seeing that. We're seeing a natural, someone who's naturally good at what they do, and it looks like they enjoy it. Just we're seeing that performance.
When I
That's
think in
awesome.
I think in Gen Z terms, what Rick is trying to say is he's built different.
He's built different.
Thank you, Michael.
but
Thank you. I think we
but
needed that.
and going off of that too, we can go back to Jared. I was seeing a lot of comments on the Outlaws stuff and even TLN. People were like, how many times are they going to say that he was a NFL wide receiver? And the reason they're doing it is this guy was literally learning the Atlanta Falcons playbook a year ago, and he's coming back to the field after 2 games, 3 games, and this is how he looks. Yeah, we're going to keep saying that he's an NFL wide receiver before this because, like you said, look how good he's playing. There was no, you would have thought after you take that many years off lacrosse, which it's not a lot, but it's still a good amount, to come play professional and you're still playing the way you are and you put up the games you are. Yeah, we're gonna mention that because you're balling out. And like even when I made the post today with all the Twitter conversations that are behind it, I don't even want to call him a rookie. I don't even think it's right to call him a rookie. He doesn't play like a rookie. He plays like an actual veteran out there. I don't even think it's right to call him a rookie. I really don't.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great, point to bring up. Um, I don't think people realize like how hard that can be transitioning from one sport to another, and he's he's just doing something that hasn't been done in lacrosse before, and I think he's just doing it wonderfully. So I think that's a great point, Mike.
No,
For
no,
sure.
and we had Chris Hogan on the Cannons, and Chris Hogan was amazing too. I really liked how he played and he balled out. But I think we're gonna see Jared have greater success than him, and that's I don't even think it's a hot take. I think we all know Jared is him.
He's him. I don't like him. I do. Yeah, and speaking of hot takes, do you think with McNanny, I know this is a super small sample size. He only has 2 games under his belt, but McNanny, how does he compare to Rookie of the Year right now? If he keeps up these numbers, we'll have to see. Obviously, like I said, there's a small sample size. There's only 2 games, but for what he's doing, do you guys think he's a good Rookie of the Year candidate going forward? I think he's definitely pushing it for sure.
That's a big one to dump on because there's a big conversation that happens behind that. Um, yeah, you know, um, I think there's no way he's not in contention if he continues with the numbers that he has. Right,
Yeah,
number one of everybody, not just number one of rookies, number one of everybody. Um, you see that, you see his explosiveness and what he's been able to bring to a team. That means instant impact, right? Like we talk about the GOAT in basketball, and it's always Michael Jordan. Like the new guys want to say Kobe or they want to say whoever. But there's one guy that if you were to always have in your team, it's this guy. Well, he's that right now. Like he's playing at that level. So I think you have to have a serious consideration for him there. Now, saying that, if you put every other rookie, if you look at the top stats of just not rookies, but I'm talking players of attack, of midi, of face-off, of D-mids, of all that, there's not a single rookie leading any of those categories. He's the only one. So, yeah, I think he has to be there.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, what do you think, Mike?
I think if he keeps the pace that he is, he'll be mentioned, right? And I think the scouting report's changing on the Outlaws. I think they shut down O'Neill. We started shifting the plays around. The scouting report's different on our goalie now. They know it's going to be tougher to score. Our defense is stepping up. I think if he keeps playing the way that he does, if our defense keeps playing the way he does, he's going to get mentioned. I just think it's tough because the Maryland's goalie is a rookie as well, and he had a really good game. He was in the high 70s, same as Liam. But small sample size, these guys, Liam already had his bye week. We're going to keep moving forward, and I think if he stays within that 60 to 70% the whole entire year, he'll be in contention. I think he'll be top 30 for sure. Now let's go into another hot take here that I'm going to drop on you guys. I'm kind of going to spitball here. Lowy McNaney is the best goalie in the league percentage wise, and yes, he sat out 2 games. Is he an all-star goalie?
Ooh,
No. No,
yes.
because we voted too early. That's it. If we voted in another week, yes. The votes came out. I've made my votes and I know who I voted for, and he wasn't in that conversation because it was just too early.
Yeah.
Do you think? Okay, so if we could vote later, let's say the all-star game was 3 weeks later. Do you think he makes it into the all-star game?
I think he does. I think he
Yeah,
does.
I
Especially if he, yeah, if he
So
puts up
so
these
two
numbers.
goalies can make it from each conference, right? So we have Blaze and Dobson, who listening to other podcasts, that's who's projected, and I'm pretty sure they got in. How does he fit amongst those? I think Blaze had a record-breaking game against us. However, he gets pulled out the next game, right? In Carolina.
hey,
And
hey,
then this week he
they
pulls
said
himself
he
out.
pulled himself out. Yeah, he pulled himself out.
So then, and
Yeah,
Dobson
for
isn't
sure.
necessarily having the year that he's had previously. So where's McNaney fall in there? I think.
I
If
think, yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, I think both of those goalies, honestly, like when you put it in that terms, they're, yeah, I don't know. I think they're both doing really good. I think Dobbs is still a really good goalie. I think he's really keeping that team afloat as well. But you can argue so is McNanny. So it's definitely hard to kind of put him over those two. I think just the experience of what they can do kind of just trumps McNanny. But I mean, obviously, I think he's an all star. I mean, I think he's doing great, but obviously we're biased. But
You got to have the name recognition in there, right? I mean, everybody knows Reardon. I mean, it's, we've
100%.
been
Yeah.
watching him for a long time. It's going to be hard to vote McNaney year one over Reardon, but if you're going off stats, of course you would. You have to. You saw the last two games of what's happened to Reardon. But we're fighting the fact that, I don't know if you guys watch the games and like upload on the PLL app and, you check in and sync up. You do
Yep.
that, and they've been Outlaws are always the last. So if we're the last, then who else is really getting that name recognition out there for us with these other teams? Is he going to be able to get that all-star vote? Year one, probably not, but should he be? After 6 weeks, if he continues, yes. Should he after 4 weeks with sitting out two games? No.
I think he has an impressive resume right now. We put down the Dogs, and then we put down the back-to-back Archers, back-to-back champs Archers, and then if we put down the Redwoods, we already lost to the Redwoods previously, but then we play them here in San Diego. I think it's to be argued, at least in my opinion.
yeah, no, yeah, I agree.
So you
Fortunately,
guys know, I we vote for, we make our picks. I picked Outlaws this week on purpose because I really think we're going to see a transition when you have these PLL teams that rely too heavily on rookies. You're going to see fatigue start happening because they've already played a full season, and now they're playing an additional season a week after that season ends. They're playing now an additional season at a higher pace. This is something that is just a body is going to wear down on. And so you're going to see these teams like the Redwoods, who had an amazing draft and also got some other players. You're going to see them start to fatigue, but you're also going to see that we have, I mean, I'm just trying to think, out of the three, McNaney's the only, okay, Bernhardt's a rookie, but McNaney's really the only one that has what I'm talking about. But he's,
Yep.
it's different for goalie fatigue versus like midi attack D fatigue. So we're going to see just a different, we're going to start seeing different production out of teams later on this season now.
Well, and I like what Dan said in his podcast too, because he's talking about power rankings, and power rankings are judged upon the strength of your schedule, who you played, and how you played in the previous games. And yes, the Redwoods beat us, but they haven't beat anyone really like acknowledgeable yet. Like they didn't beat the Archers, we did. I think whatever we want to conclude about that. But I do think that we have a very good chance today. And like you said, the rookies are tired. We do have a bunch of young guys, and I think we are a different team now. I think the scouting report changed from the first week to this week. It's no longer just cover O'Neill. You have to cover
Mm,
everyone now. And now our middies they're playing ball. Graham Bundy scored. Dalton Young is going out there. Bernhardt's balling out. Our middies are actually, and Anderson got his goal. You know, we're a completely different team than what the Redwoods faced the first week. And they said, is McAdory and Kavanaugh and all those guys going to hold up to where they're at from week one to this? We're going to see. And I'll be
yeah.
very curious to see how they play compared to their first week. And we'll segue into our next piece, though. Rick, what do you expect from the Outlaws stepping into this next week against the Redwoods? And, you brought up the Pat Bowlen thing last week of, hey, I expect 4 preseason games, 16 games in the season. What are your expectations for this week against the Redwoods?
I really expect just to grow within the assists. I think I don't, it was 11 assists we had this last game. So almost every one of our scores came with an assist. So you're going to see that ball movement get better. Somebody we have not mentioned yet was Kavanaugh. Shot the ball 11 times, 4 assists, still 1 goal. I mean, 5 points. That production is incredible. It was kind of hard for me to leave him off a list, but we just had so many other incredible people that we had to mention. I like that you said the scouting report changes because it does. These last two games, and especially this last one, it clicked, it fired, and you saw the frustration that it was giving to this team, to a team that has good coaching, right? That's the difference between, hey, guys are getting frustrated and the coaches don't know how to adjust to it versus two-time national championship team. The coaching knows how to adjust, but we're still giving them fits. We still have more players that we can throw out there too. I'm still the biggest Elof fan in the world. And if things need to start being managed on offense, that's the guy that you use to manage. If we need to speed things up, we now have those guys. We have the full spectrum to be able to move it. But like I also said with the Redwoods, they haven't been playing as aggressive and as explosive in their last few games, where I think that our upward trend and their downward trend, we're going to see, I'll call it, I'm gonna give us a minimum of 3 point lead, 12-15 game. I'm gonna see a big time offensive production. And I think that we're gonna see some garbage goals at the end of the game from the Redwoods because they're just gonna come out and need something. Um, but with where we're headed versus them, that's what I'm expecting in this game.
I like those takes. I think those are some great hot takes there. Yeah, I think. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, I know you were saying fatigue. The Redwoods did get a bye last week. Do you think that plays a factor in this game?
I don't think it. I think it can, and not from the manner that you would think. I think where it helps us is they lose that chemistry. They were hot for 2 games, and then you play the Archers, and they played a fair game against Archers. I mean, it was one of the best games we've seen this season so far, and very fun to watch, and very like they went toe to toe. But what I'm saying is, I think they could have like through that week. They're not staying together. Like I just don't think they're gonna have that same chemistry, and they're not gonna be playing as hot as they did. And I think the bye week is gonna play either a huge piece for them of like, hey, we rested, we're good to go, or this is a bye week that kind of could potentially put them in a funk. So I mean, I do think there's gonna be 2 different teams that we could see out of this.
Again, downward trend though. Their best game was their first game of the season. Our
True,
worst game was the first game of the season. Two
it's true.
completely different teams are playing each other now.
I like that. Yeah, no, I think this is going to be such a good matchup because I mean, there's just so many factors going into it. You also got I mean, we are playing the Redwoods at home. I think that's another factor as well. That's going to be tough as well. But I think that rivalry is brewing, and I think we talked about it kind of the first week. The Redwoods were hungrier last time. Like they had something to prove. They were 2-8, was it last year? Like they had something to prove. The Outlaws didn't really have something to prove last time. We got we got our asses handed to us last time we faced the Redwoods. So I think we got more of a chip on our shoulder, and I think we're going to come out with that hungrier mentality to steal a win, to take them down at home. I think that's what the Outlaws want to do. So I think that's where it's going to lead. It's going to be coming down to that grit, and the Outlaws just got to want it more. And I think if they do, that's going to be great. But yeah, some keys to that game. I think defense definitely have to keep firing on all cylinders. I think what we missed the first week against the Redwoods was our transition, and I think because we were constantly getting scored on, we couldn't get transition with McNanny and goal. I think we can push transition more and get their defense stretched thin, and I think that's going to be a new aspect that we're going to key in on and exploit because our transition game has just been lights out the last couple
Yeah.
games. It's just been all coming together. You can argue it's one of the best aspects of this team. So um, I'm excited to see that. Yeah, kind of
You
go.
you did. I want to bring that. You did mention, and this was something he did really well in the third. He was getting fired on a lot, but his quick transition with the ball kept them from subbing immediately like they wanted to.
Yes,
They had to actually
yes.
delay a lot of their substitutions because of that quick transition. To your point, so that's just going to get better.
Yeah,
Well, then you get
totally.
those
Yeah,
mismatches because then you have the offensive midi on defense. You get the mismatches, and that's what we want.
Hmm.
totally. Yeah. So yeah, very excited. Yeah, offense just needs to keep buzzing. I think even in week one, I think there wasn't any like lockdown defensive plays on the Redwoods end. So I think the offense this can be a prime time to kind of exploit that and use the weapons that they have. I think chemistry is just increasing every week. So um, I'm very excited to see what the Outlaws can do offensively for sure. So I think that's going to be a big key. Will the offense fire or will it not? I think they will. I'm pretty confident in other aspects of it. Um, I'm very confident in our defense and our goalie situation. Very confident in our transition game. It's all about those offensive middies and that attack. Who can get hot? Can we, fight back when something goes wrong? Like if their defense is locking off a certain angle or a certain style, like how can we adjust and get around that? I think that's all going to be on the offense. They really need to step up for sure. even though they are already. But this is a good game for them. This is a big game for them. Big game for all of them.
Well, we definitely saw that with the middies. I mean, last week we had 298 touches. This week we had 313, and we actually did not win the possession game at all. They had 24 minutes compared to our 20. So I think as long as we keep the ball moving, our middies keep playing the way they are. Graham Bundy needs to start shooting a little bit more. I want to see Anderson involved. He got his goal. Let's keep those guys hot because who are you gonna defend? You're gonna attack the you're gonna defend the attack guys. That's already three guys. Then you have your middies too. We're a powerhouse. So just keep that ball moving. We don't have to win the possession game, but get those touches, get those shots, and I think this is a very winnable game for us.
Totally.
I don't see how you don't see that it's winnable, figuring out like everything that you just said, figuring out all of our tools in our handbag that we have to now start plugging and playing. I really think that we even have more than we're even showing. We have some we have some different lines that we can maybe put on MIDI, some different lines that we can put on attack that would really screw with how defenses are going to use D mids and pulls. Period. Right? That there's some exciting things that we can do with all of our guys that I don't think we've even touched yet, and maybe we're waiting for the last half of the season. But whenever we start getting into, whenever the offense starts getting lax now, we know that we can do some changes. We brought Bernhardt here. That didn't just give us a little bit of a bump. That almost doubled our offense, if you think of it like that.
It did.
Right?
It did.
It definitely did. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you create a threat at midfield and at attack. Not to harp on any of the middies that didn't make it because he was in, slotted in. Like Sam Hanley wasn't really doing a lot. You can argue that some of the other middies that aren't on the game day roster anymore weren't doing a lot. So like to have him there and be such a presence is phenomenal for this offense. And yeah, it's just going to be great to see. So yeah, just
When
going to
you
keep killing it.
and we'll make this quick because I have one last question for you guys before we wrap up. But
Yeah.
Sammy Hanley getting traded on Monday and then balling out the way he did for the Redwoods. Where was that? We were waiting for that. We needed that. I'd
Yeah,
still take
actually,
Jared, but I'm like, I really like Hanley. I really did. I mean, the guy balled out, and I think he's gonna have a chip on his shoulder to play us again. And I'll be curious to see how he does. But I think, like, where was that? We could have used that for sure. Still
yeah,
love
I
the
think
guy. I mean, it's crazy seeing him in the Redwoods jersey, but I hope he has a great season. I hope we beat him this time. And every single time that we play the Redwoods. But I mean, you got to acknowledge he balled out for sure.
I know totally. I think it's just one of those situations where it's just like, I mean, I think you see it all the time in sports is where just the coaching style, the team itself, it just something doesn't work for that guy, and you see it all the time where he gets traded to some guy gets traded to another team, and their different playing style can unlock what he needs. So I think that it's just good for him. It sucks that he couldn't find it here in Denver, but you know I I think they probably needed him more than we needed him in a way, especially with Bernhardt coming in. So, I think he will come in with a chip on his shoulder, and I think that's something that the Outlaws got to key into. That he's going to be hungry and he's going to really force the ball. But we've had to we've been trying to get him out of this funk where he runs into a double team and gets himself into trouble. So how can we force that? How can we create that bad game for him? And I think the Outlaws can definitely do that for sure, and kind of find those bad habits in him again. But I mean, obviously, great guy, great player. So sucks to see him on the other team, but I think he'll definitely come out with a chip on his shoulder, and hopefully we can limit him as much as we can and get the dub.
I can't remember where I heard this, but it was on ESPN or something. But they talked about like after a player gets traded and he goes to another team, they usually ball out. And he gave the analogy of it's like your ex is always prettiest the week you leave her.
That's a good
And he was the prettiest he was last week. And so we'll see how he does this week. But last
one.
question I have for you guys before we wrap this up. I asked you guys this last week, and I'm going to respin it here. Was last week's game against a back-to-back championship winning Archers team bigger than playing the Redwoods this week that we've already lost to, or is the game against the Redwoods a bigger game?
I'll start. I think the game against the Archers is a bigger game than the Redwoods. We can lose to the Redwoods and still be in the hunt and still be okay. Well, we just lost to them twice. Maybe this is a good team for the future. We lose to the Archers last week, and our season is bleak, right? Very different feel for one loss to the next loss or one win to the next win. This win against the Archers, I mean, look at the tone of this of our conversations now. It's positive, it's going forward, and I truly believe like we're on the upward. If we lost against the Archers and said, "Oh, I believe we can come back against the Redwoods," it might be a little bit different conversation. So if we lose to the Redwoods, is much less pain than if we would have lost the Archers because it means two different things.
I like
Yeah, I
that.
like that. Yeah, I like that take for sure. Yeah, I think it was last week. I mean, you would have either been 2-2, which we are now, or 1-3. Like you said, that is totally different vibes, totally different outlooks on the season of what's going on, and you would, be fighting with the chaos for the bottom spot. I think every game is a must win, but yeah, I agree. I mean, last week was definitely a must win to kind of get this season going. Now, I mean, looking forward, you know, being 2-3 is a lot worse than being 3-2. So I think this is also a huge game as well. I think they need to come at it kind of with the same mentality, for sure. So yeah,
I,
it's gonna be nuts, but I agree.
I do want to throw some shade though to another podcaster, YouTuber, a guy named Mitchell Pehlke, that I have not listened to his take yet from the Archers game, but the guy talks some serious smack. Yeah, the guy talks some serious smack after the Water Dogs. I mean, complete disrespect from every one of those guys. And I know they're just it's their hot takes from what they're seeing, some guys that they know, but didn't give us the credit of the growth that they had seen. And really, you're seeing, are they watching a game and dissecting, or are they just being fans too? And I'm a fan. I believe me, I'm a fan. But I'm gonna dissect what I see, and they disrespect. I have yet to listen, but I'm gonna listen to this, and I might have to call into a little Italian dude that used to play in Ohio and be like, dude, you got to pay attention more to the games that you're watching.
I like that
Hey,
take.
look, I can't disrespect him. I'm Italian too. We're probably related in some sort, so I can't disrespect Mitchell Pehlke here. But I agree with you. He, his picks aren't very often the Outlaws, but like I said, I gotta rock with my fellow Italians.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I listened to that too. So hopefully they give us some love. I mean, because I think they really proved it last week, and um, you know, the dance isn't over yet. First they need a ticket to the dance, but they need to keep playing lights out, and they need to play with a chip on their shoulder like they have the last two games, and they need to win it. I think every game at this point is a must win. You have to get you have to get high in those standings, to get that going. It's that first seed. I think it's anyone's ball game for that. If the Redwoods lose this next game, we can hop up and we can challenge them for a number one spot in the West. So I think they need to come out red hot for it. But what do you guys think?
I think I'm still going to ride my Palky train and say, I'm calling you out. And if you do another 0-4 week, you're done, bro. We got to stop at this. So we're coming in Outlaws. They're coming in strong. I really truly believe that they are coming in and beating the Redwoods. They're coming in. It's going to be an exciting game. We're going to see a lot of. I think we're going to see a lot of new stuff that these guys are now able to bring because we've already proven that we can do something else. We're going to get some other stuff thrown at us. They're going to be really exciting to watch.
Yeah,
Can
I'm
we
very
uh
excited.
can we all hit the Mitchell Pehlke here for a second? Yeah, Mitchell
Yeah,
Pehlke,
jump
if
in
you
here.
actually do listen to this or you get tagged in this from someone that listens to this, if actually anyone that's listening to this podcast, I want you to go on our Instagram and tag Mitchell Pehlke in the picture that I'm gonna post of this, and we're gonna get him on the podcast so Rick can squash his beef with him.
I'll say, if I can get Hogue to come and teach me how to coach face-offs, I would love it. Great face-off guy. But you can't go 0-4 Palky and not be called out.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it. But gentlemen, we got exciting. We went down 0-2. We're now 2-0 the last two games, sitting at even 500. I think we got a ton of exciting things going on, but I appreciate your guys' time coming on. Rick and Max are always the best co-hosts on here, and let's go Outlaws. Final score prediction: I'm going 10-11 Outlaws win. Rick, what about you?
I said 12-15, but I think there's going to be 1 to 2 garbage goals from the Redwoods at the end.
Okay, Max.
yeah. I think it's going to be another battle. I'm going to go. I hope the Outlaws blow them out of the water. I think it's going to be battle 13-12.
All right, so we got a close game. We appreciate everyone that does listen. Stay tuned for our pick'ems for this week, and hopefully we get our dub and go Outlaws.
Go
Go
Laws.
Laws.
Thank you,
All
everybody.
right.
Boom. Awesome.